Hey everybody, Dr. Sanderson here, and welcome to Unit 4 of our course where we're going to be talking about organizational behavior and leadership. So, I think there's a relationship between these two concepts or topics. So, with organizational behavior, what we're looking at is how do factors within the organization influence how people behave, and how do they lead to conflict? How do we resolve conflict? And try and minimize negative effects of that in the organization. Keep in mind that conflict can be a good thing. It does not necessarily have to be negative. So, what are some ways in which organizations can influence how we behave? Well, a lot actually, but if we look at just a few, how your manager treats you, right? So, how your boss, interacts with you can influence how you behave. If your boss treats you nicely and cares about you and listens to you, then chances are you're going to want to perform well for your boss. On the other hand, if you have a boss who doesn't care about you, maybe yells at you a lot, doesn't really give you a chance to explain your point of view, you tend to not want to perform well, and you might go ahead and leave the organization. And as we talked about in the HR section, it's costly when employees leave the organization. So you have to really look at your culture as well. Is the culture supportive of people reporting concerns? Is the culture empowering of people? Do we allow them to have a voice in things? And that's not to say that they necessarily get a voice in every single decision, but you have to, people have to feel like they have a say or some input into what the organization does. And if we look at that with sports organizations and coaches, so some coaches, allow players to have a lot of input, and some coaches don't. And that doesn't necessarily mean more wins or losses, but it's just a different kind of philosophy that can influence how those athletes behave. So, for instance, you might see athletes transfer because they don't like, the way a coach runs things. So, with conflict, that's generally inevitable. And there's a lot of different approaches that you can take to conflict in sports organizations. You have to balance your own concerns with the concerns of the other person, and try and equitably navigate those to provide a mutually beneficial solution. So that's not always easy to do. And we see this with like collective bargaining agreements or discipline type issues that come up in sports. There's certain things that people may not be willing to give into, and that can lead to impasses, and that can lead to the conflict being more pronounced and drawing out. So, and then also the amount of power a person has plays a role in that. So if you think of Roger Goodell, who is the commissioner of the National Football League, he has a lot of power. And so when players go to appeal things to him, they're not successful a lot of the times because he is a very, very powerful commissioner in sports. And then if we look at leadership, and one thing I'd really encourage you all to think about as you look at the materials here is think about what is your leadership style and how would you lead people. So what kind of skills do you have that you can develop to help you become a better leader, or that you've used in the past when you've been in leadership situations. There's, as we'll look at in this unit, there's a lot of philosophies and ideas out there about leadership. And so for example, some people feel that people are born as leaders because they have innate skills that might predispose them to be a good leader, such as they're extroverted, they're confident, they're ambitious. But that doesn't necessarily mean that somebody can't be a leader if they don't have those skills. And then leadership has to adapt to the situation. So sometimes you have to know when to really push people, and other times you have to pull back and give them some more autonomy and some more say in things. So think about people in sport that you consider to be good leaders. And because your assignment for this unit is to actually study a sports leader and talk about the ways they use power. And power, as we'll look at in the materials, does not necessarily always have to be a negative thing, although it can be. So power can be used in an intimidating type of way to say, look, do this or you're cut, do this or you're fired. But it can also be used as a way to reward people and to share and to give you credibility. So you might know things or have information or expertise that makes people want to follow you, and you can use that to motivate them. So Again, in this unit, you will have a discussion forum question that you'll complete. You'll need to respond to 2 other students, and then you'll have your leadership paper assignment that will be due as well. So I'm looking forward to your thoughts there.